Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar being hosted on Computation and Media program. We got our Vice-Chancellor Dr. Yajulu Medury, sir, who's there with us. And we also got Professor Kalyanarama and Professor Raghu Kishore, who joined us on the panel. I would request the Vice-Chancellor, sir, to start off with his opening remarks and then the other professors to take over. Requesting Vice sir to give his initial comments, please.
Okay. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Yajulu Medury, Vice-Chancellor at Mahindra University, and I have my colleagues, Professor Sri Kalyanarama, who is at the University of Florida, Gainesville, USA, and my computer science colleague, Professor Raghu Kishore, on this webinar, where we're going to talk about a very unique B.Tech program, trying to combine computer science with the digital media applications to have a B.Tech program in computation and media. This will be the first offering of its kind in India, but it's a very popular undergraduate program and postgraduate program in the US higher education scenario, where many universities like Georgia Tech, the University of Florida, Gainesville, Columbia, all are running a very successful undergraduate program looking at the applications of computing to journalistic principles and digital media, which is the rage nowadays. Okay, so we have a 4-year B.Tech program, and my colleague Sri Kalyanarama, who's actually a professor of eminence at the University of Florida, Gainesville, in the College of Journalism and Media out there, has worked like anything in getting this program together. Sri will be joining us later sometime in 2023, but is advising us on this B.Tech program and computation and media. So without further ado, I'll request Sri and Raghu to go ahead and do the presentation on this program, and then we'll take questions and answers at the end. Go ahead, Sri.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Dr. Medury, thank you very much for your introductory remarks. I think you just set up the stage beautifully for the exciting program that we have in store. Like Dr. Medury mentioned, I'm currently at the University of Florida. I'm hoping to move to Hyderabad in the next year or so. But this is something which we've been thinking about a lot, as Dr. Medury mentioned, the confluence of technology and its applications to so many different domains, including outside of technology, but also looking at areas in the humanities and the social sciences. It's something that's been gathering a lot of currency of late. So to give you some examples, I teach classes which are very interdisciplinary. So I have students from computer science, I have students from the medical school, I have students from anthropology, from psychology, including, of course, in journalism and communication, which is where I'm currently based. So one of the questions which we keep getting of late is we keep getting these questions from a lot of our students, from the non-traditional tech students, who ask about how they can work for the FANG companies. That's like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, Google. So that's what they want to work for. At the same time, we also see this other trend where we have a lot of students from the engineering sciences who come and ask for better skills in terms of being able to craft more effective stories, more effective messages, how we can communicate to an audience more effectively. So, as we can see, there is this curricular interest with, from the student community, and also there's something which is being voiced by industry as well, where they're really looking for people with a blend of interdisciplinary skills. Now, this is something like Dr. Medury mentioned, it's really exciting for us to be able to think about how we can offer one of the very first program of this sort in India, but also one of the most cutting-edge programs anywhere in the world. We have the great good fortune of having worked with industry leaders, several colleagues around the world to really put this together. So it also requires the vision of a university, and that's what Mahindra University is about, and also senior leadership with Dr. Medury himself being like such a visionary leader as well as an eminent academic, to really think about how we can offer something so cutting edge and so novel in India. Like Dr. Medury mentioned, I'm also joined here by my colleague at Mahindra, Professor Raghu, who's a professor of computer science. We have worked together on this, so it's something which we're very excited about. So let me just take you through, some thoughts. I'm sure you're going to have some questions in terms of what's this program about? What do we get from this? Why should we take this? So hopefully we can give you some glimpses of the excitement that is in store. Okay, so let me share my screen. Just a minute. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes, Professor, it's visible.
Okay, so I'm going to put this in slideshow mode so that it works better. So let me just, okay, so I think this should work, right? Okay, so here we are talking about why computation and media. So think about this, right? I just gave you some of these instances. As recently as 20 years ago, when I used to teach an introduction to technology class, one of the questions I would ask in my class, many students such as yourself, most of them freshmen, where we would ask, how many of you own a cell phone, right? And if you think about it, that seems rather far-fetched. I'm not making that up, right? I used to ask the question, but within a very short time, I would ask how many of you do not own a cell phone, right? Within just a question, like a matter of 3 years or something like that. So we talk about how technology and how its assimilation into society is just so exponentially fast, right? We talk about Moore's law. Some of you might have heard of that. The amount of time it takes for a technology to sort of imbue into society. Similarly, it was first we were just talking about cell phones. Then we started talking about what about smartphones, right? Now, many of you, you're living in a generation where it's so digital, right? So technology permeates every aspect of your lives, right? There are many people who are quite stunned when they hear people like Dr. Medury, Professor Raghu, myself, where we say we didn't even know what Google was. So I was actually in a technology class around less than 25 years ago, where somebody came and spoke about this new search engine, which was going to revolutionize the way we search for information on the web, right? And that was a beta version of Google, right? So all this really happening at such a rapid pace, but also because we are surrounded by technology, it's also something which we just assume to be part and parcel of everyday lives, and we assume the ubiquity of it for quite some time, right? So what we are trying to think about here is, we know all this is happening. We also think about it in terms of how can we go beyond the way we traditionally think about technology, or how we think about technology just traditionally. So we have a fantastic program in computer science and engineering at Mahindra. We have great engineering programs. We also have other programs that are being started. So that's what really lends to the structure of why we are able to offer something like this, because it's so multi, and transdisciplinary. So as you can see from this, I'm not going to take you through every single one, but what we're really thinking or talking about here is how it's going beyond just computer science and engineering. So we're thinking about how can we craft a better message? So how can we narrate stories better? What's the role of research into this? There are all these companies now, some of you might be aware of this, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all hiring people who just have good A/B testing skills. In other words, they're looking for people with good research knowledge. How can you experiment, right? So that's a word that we hear often. So you're all familiar with terms like artificial intelligence. Then we have digital fabrication. Then we have the flavor of the month currently is the metaverse, right? So how do we have spaces and extended reality, right? So we have all this. So we're really talking about something. Think of this as like a Venn diagram where we have communication, we have technology, we have storytelling, how all that comes together in this program that we're offering, okay? And you'll all have a chance to ask questions at the end. So bear with me while we go through this so that you get a sense of what we are launching here, okay? So technology is all around us. It's an important part of our lives. We all acknowledge that, we know that. We really live between the digital and the physical worlds where communication is the key, right? So in computational media, what you the students, what you're going to learn is how technology influences people and how you can get technology to work for people by using storytelling techniques, as well as deep insights from many different disciplines and areas and behavioral knowledge. So you will also learn how to use, for example, marketing, persuasion, and psychology principles to design completely new technological applications as well. right? So we're talking about something which is essentially ingrained in research and well thought of techniques, empirical techniques. So it's backed by a lot of empirical science, but also coming at this from a multitude of perspectives and looking at how we can really look at problem solving using these different techniques. Okay, so here are some examples. Think about how you can use technology to create empathy, right? So this is like such a big thing today we talk about, saying how can you put yourself in the shoes of the other, right? So the last 2 years of the pandemic, for example, have taught us how important for us to be looking out for each other, how we need to stay connected. This is also something which Mr. Anand Mahindra spoke about as recently a few weeks ago at the convocation address. So he was speaking about how can we use technology to solve some of these pressing problems, what's the integration of technology and the social sciences. That's precisely what we're doing here. So this is a great time for us to be thinking about how you, the future of the country, can also be thinking about solving some of the most pressing societal challenges using some of these skills, right? So how can you promote new ways of dealing with pain? We know that many of us rely on pharmaceuticals, right? So the pharmacological alternative to pain could be in terms of creating like a very good immersive experience, right? How can you make sense of data? Okay, we're talking about power cuts, all these different issues that we are facing. We know about the fuel crisis. So what ways can we use or harness the power of technology for us to try and save energy? So we know that water is a big issue, both senses of the word, right? So sometimes we talk about how there's a drought and how there is no water at all. So how do we preserve water? What would be some conservation techniques? On the other hand, as we've been experiencing in Hyderabad over the last couple of months, for example, we've seen a lot of flooding issues as well, and that brings its own set of misery, right? So we're talking about all these everyday quotidian issues which can be answered using, the power of technology. So you learn all this, you can solve all these problems, but at the very basic level, you'll be receiving a Bachelor of Technology degree in Computational Media. Okay. Now, who are you? That's a question that we want to ask of you, right? And I'm sure you're asking yourself, is this the program for me? Is this who I am, right? So think about it in terms of answering some of these very broad, basic, inchoate questions, right? So are you interested in looking at how we as humans, how we process information, how we make decisions? So can you think about it in terms of, applications, the technology aspect, whether you're designing something, whether you're going to be testing something, whether you're disseminating something, but how it can actually have an impact on audiences, right? In other words, how it can persuade people, how it can create awareness, how it can form attitudes, how it can lead to behavioral change, right? Are you going to be looking at it in terms of creating new spaces, right? So I'm not able to meet somebody because that person is out of my geographical proximity. Can I create a space now where we can all be together and we can touch each other in, for example, like virtual reality, right? So these are some of the very basic questions, just like a snapshot of some of the things that we can think about here. And these are among the many things that we will be offering and covering in great detail in Computational Media, okay? The other question, and I'm sure all of you have this question, I'm sure we have some parents in the audience and they have this question too, saying, what will our child do with this degree, right? So what can you do? The answer is it's like limitless, right? Because you can, obviously, most of us have this concern. We have all been through this when we finished our 12th grade and we're thinking about what do we do next? The first question that comes to mind is, what is my employability option, right? So we want to assure you that one of the reasons why we're putting something like this together is also because it's an incredibly exciting space to be in terms of the employability option. It's not just the tech companies per se, which are looking out for people with these skills. Like I mentioned, this program is also being put together as a result of working with industry professionals from various domains. Just about everybody, right? It doesn't have to be a technology company. Everybody is getting into the importance of technology and how they're using all these principles. So it's really fair game for a graduate with a B.Tech in Computational Media to be working in many of these industries. What we're really providing is not just a foundation in technology, but also expanding on that to give you not just like a very superfluous understanding of communication, media, and storytelling, but actually making sure that you have the requisite skills, which really lead to what you might call expert skills. Okay. Okay, so to give you a little bit of the structure of this program. So as Dr. Medury mentioned, it's going to be a bachelor's program and it's 4 years. So it's divided into 8 semesters and you will be graduating with a B.Tech degree. So we are really looking at, there are many different things here that, we are talking about shared expertise, cross-media approaches. So these are snapshots of the types of coursework that you can expect to be exposed to as a student in this major. So we are talking about introduction to storytelling. We are talking about how we go into some specialized forms of storytelling. How can we use drone technologies? How can we use AI? How can we use immersive technology? How that can be computationally mediated. That's what we mean by that. Remember I said that we want to make sure that you do not just get a superfluous understanding, but also something which is more genuine, more deep. So here we are talking about principles of persuasion and consumer psychology in terms of getting to know what your audience is about, how do people process information, and how do people process specific messages and stories related to technology as well. Then we're talking about how there's this connect between, we live in a physical world, but increasingly the boundaries between the virtual and the physical worlds are being blurred in so many ways. So here we are talking about a range of courses that look at the confluence of these two worlds as well. We do, all of you, without exception, have heard terms like big data, data sciences, artificial intelligence. Those are all covered. We already have a stellar faculty which are already doing all that. I'll let Professor Raghu talk about some of those, including when you have some questions. But another thing which we also want to emphasize, which many people do not, or many educational institutes do not, is also like a grounding and research methodology. So even now, like I mentioned earlier, many of the top tech companies, for example, are hiring people with good, strong research skills. In particular, they're looking for someone who has good foundation experimental research methods. You might have heard the term A/B testing. A lot of tech companies, when you talk about usability research, when you talk about UX testing, this is one of the things that they mean by that. How do you create different versions of, for example, like a simulation or a technology or an application and see how well it is received? So these are some of the things that we're also going to be emphasizing in some depth. Okay. Now, the next question which you might have is, so you spoke about 8 semesters, what will my coursework look like? Okay, so think of this as like a striptease. So we obviously have 7 to 8 courses. It's going to be like a very intense curriculum, intense but interesting. That's the way we want to emphasize this. So take a look at this, right? So, and here is something that we invite you to go out and look at the curriculum of any such similar program or any related program that you might think of anywhere in the world. You'll be hard pressed to find something which includes all these different things. It's a type of thing, Professor Raghu and I were talking about this. We wish we were students in this program, right? So notice, there's just a snapshot of some of the courses you can expect. I would also like to emphasize that there's going to be, you can see that, for example, in semester 1, and then you have like a year 4 project. There's also going to be a lot of, you're going to be getting your hands and feet dirty as well. We think that's very, very important. So it's not something which is just going to be based on theoretical or conceptual skills. It's also going to be something which is very, very applied. Here again, the Mahindra ecosystem has got a huge advantage. The Dr. Medury is very well tuned with the different aspects of the Mahindra ecosystem, including Tech Mahindra. We have something called a Makers Lab. So one of the things that we will be building along with some research centers would also be we will be brainstorming what would be the best pathway forward for a student as he or she moves forward in the program. For example, when you enter the 3rd year or the 4th year, when you're starting to think about certain specialized topics and what you want to be focusing on, the types of opportunities that can be made open and available to you as a result of being immersed within the Mahindra ecosystem. Okay, so this is something which we are all very passionate about. The Mahindra group is very passionate about. The university is very passionate about this. It's a personal passion of many of us here, including the panelists, Professor Raghu, Professor Medury, and myself. We face so many societal challenges, right? So think about this in terms of all the natural hazards, right? I'm sure you're all aware of flooding. The last month, for example, the UK had its highest ever temperatures, right? So they reached 40 degrees. It's something which is quite de rigueur for those of us living in many parts of India. But again, we are talking about how there are so many different challenges that we are facing as a world, right? Some of these are natural, some of these are human caused. So one of the questions that comes up is, how can we use technology to study some of these? So we already know that some of these technologies, including AI, machine learning, big data, can help solve some of these problems, right? You can generate some of these models and then you can feed that into this. And then, we come up with some simulations. We have all these data points. You actually get this information. So this is what some of these great scientists and engineers, that's what they do. One question which comes up is, our job doesn't end there. In order for this to be truly effective and efficacious, we also want to be thinking about it in terms of how do we communicate and disseminate this information? How can we serve as good watchdogs of society? How can we serve as effective gatekeepers? So how can we change minds? So these are some of the questions which we hope and which we will want all of you as students in this major to be working on as well. Think about this, right? So we are talking about computational media as tools to tell compelling stories. Okay, in other words, think outside the box. How can we think about how can we explicate what media mean? Okay, so thinking about media in novel ways. Now, there's something called the Museum of Tomorrow in Brazil. It's a lovely museum. I encourage some of you or all of you to Google it and then read up more about this. But let me just play a short video clip here, okay? Rakesh, I hope the audio is...
This is an arts and science museum, and it is incredible. I would say that it's poetic and inspiring. The main exhibits are digital focused rather than objects, so the experience at this museum is totally unique.
Okay. So again, think about this in terms of how we spoke about how the lines are increasingly getting blurred between what is digital, what is physical, so the physical and the virtual worlds. Again, this provides some very unique opportunities for us to be thinking about it in terms of applications, how we can orient towards industry, how we can craft and create new industries out of such practices, and also great hotbeds for research practices as well, right? So we are really talking about technology, storytelling, and communication here. Like I mentioned earlier, there's been so much of talk about immersive technologies and the metaverse. It's something which all of us are eagerly looking forward to. I'm sure many of you already have experienced some of this. Here again is a short video which I'll share so that you can get a glimpse of where we might be headed with some of these exciting technologies, okay?
When I was younger, my dad would take us to some of the art theaters to see some of the films from the 50s that were 3D with the paper glasses. Just finished Maleficent, and someone showed me an article about Oculus. So I got to see what this is. It was my first experience with VR, and literally came out of that and said, this is going to change everything.
When we started Oculus, we really thought that the major focus for VR was going to be games. Now that the Rift is sort of maturing as a technology, and really virtual reality on the whole, the potential is really there to take people to these virtual worlds.
We are seeing the birth of a completely new medium. Storytelling in VR is much more complex. It's kind of a three-dimensional storytelling. There's multiple things going on at the same time.
What would it be like to be in an arena with the matador and the bull as their spar?
You are seeing that dust get kicked up in your face.
Adrenaline is pumping. You tend to only remember the details that you need to know, and everything else goes fuzzy around you. We're going to embrace that.
Could we build an environment that was so real? Could we really make you feel you're there? Crawling around, getting your head right up close to the plants, and really feeling that sense of scale, and then, oh my God, what is that? The possibilities of VR are much more vast than we initially thought they would be, because you matter in that story. The way you experience the story matters, while the way I experience a movie doesn't matter for how the movie is told.
Story Studio is a collection of artists, creators, and technicians who are learning how to tell stories in virtual reality. We are here to make movies. We think the best way to develop, to research, is actually to try to tell a story.
Imagine if you could connect with characters and participate in a way you never have before.
Storytellers like Rob and Sashka just have this incredible wealth of experience. And
Okay, so I'll be happy to share that link. You can find that as well. But that was a good point to stop in terms of storytelling and how you can create these experiences. I'm sure with all your creative skills, you can think about the many ways in which this can be applied, right? So think about it in terms of most of us are very passionate about cricket. Right? Think about it in terms of how your experience of the IPL can be completely changed. So something that we want to emphasize here is with computational media, the experience is the heart of so much of what we will be learning and what we will be creating and what we will be studying. Okay. So just some snapshots of some other experiences. So think about it in terms of what our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, said, what is India's greatest strength? Unity in diversity, right? But we're also living in a world where there seems to be what I said earlier about how there's that lack of empathy. So we don't really understand what it feels like to be in someone else's shoes. So here we have like a very multicultural, multi-diverse team, but a lot of times, you can't put yourself in that person's shoes. So this is again something which is assuming a lot of importance in the corporate world, right? So how do we get along? How do we collaborate? How do we know what it feels like to be someone who's very different from yourself, for example, right? So these are again some incredible opportunities for us to be creating a completely new world, a new workplace for us to be working in together in harmony and in collaboration, right? So here is a snapshot of what that could look like.
what if
You could become another person.
What if
You could become
a colleague,
A peer,
un manager,
an employee,
a stranger.
what if you could experience
The world from their perspective.
to feel excluded,
Invisible.
petit,
powerless,
silenciado,
alone,
What if?
to increase awareness,
To grow empathy.
practice behavior,
For a breakthrough.
for an aha moment,
for understanding,
For inclusion.
for equality, for an equal reality.
Okay, so think about some of those questions that they were asking. Think about how you would try and answer some of those questions in terms of things which are relevant to you or to the circle around you or to a community. Imagine if that were part of one of your class projects, how you'd go about creating something completely new. Okay.
What if
Okay, so another way in which we can think about computational media is the importance of shared experiences. We can talk about in collaborative spaces typically, right? Even now, I'm on Zoom, you're on Zoom, this is how we are interacting, right? But we can again think outside the box. So this is actually something which was created as part of a usability class. Will be a type of class which you'll be taking here at Mahindra as part of this particular major. It's called like a visualization lab, a project wall. We have different people coming in here with different technologies, but they're all sharing and working on this. So you have one person there wearing a headset, but he's also touching something else on that screen. Somebody's again touching a digital screen there. The person here on the right is looking at some tangible user interface. This other person here on the left, what you see is like a multi-user switch. So you have all these things. So think about how you could create something like this at Mahindra as part of some of this, right? So shared understanding and experiences, again, is an area broadly where we can talk about how technology can really be used to up the stakes, so to say. We can also think about how even what we think about as traditionally boring bits of data, right? So cybersecurity is something which it's such a growing big area, it's such a hot field. But a lot of times when people who are working in this area, they're talking about trolling through millions or trillions of code and data. Sometimes it becomes very tedious, it's very boring. Even here, you can use the power of storytelling to make such data become rich and alive. So ProtectWise, for example, they created this in order to make just these bits of data much more interesting. Okay, so another quick video. Let's look at that. We still have approximately 10 minutes. So let me just show you this quick video as well.
Endless points of light. The overwhelming chaos of cyberspace. With its disparate fabric of devices, endpoints, users, and data, you might as well be defending in the dark. So we built an entirely new model that brings order from the chaos. To switch on the lights and reveal your living network with a disruptive and visionary approach, transforming your network into a virtual cityscape. An organization's technology assets brought to life by real-time packet capture and endpoint integration streamed to the cloud. Here, in the immersive grid, security analysts gain a new perspective to patrol, hunt, and respond far beyond log files and dashboards.
So notice, it's a completely new novel way of thinking about log files and how you can storify them, so to say. Yeah. Okay, so we mentioned the metaverse. So think about how there is no university, no academic institution in the world which has its own metaverse at this point in time. So think about how you could be a pioneer in that space. So it's something that you create as part of your own experience here, but it's also talking about how we are building something at and for the university, right? Think about it in terms of how your academic life can be changed completely, can be transformed by some of these customized spaces built by you for your community as well, right? So this is just a snapshot of Mahindra University Metaverse, and so look, it could even look like this. So these are spaces where we can create this, you can grow. The possibilities again are unending, it's limitless really. You could have your entire portfolios here. You could talk about your entire 4 years of experiences here. You can revisit this 10 years down the line. You just don't have to rely on a memory and actually relive all this in terms of how it actually happened back in the day. And again, there are just so many possibilities of what you could do with that. Okay, so let's try and look at it in terms of, again, coming back to so what can I do with this degree, right? So I know very smart people here, A lot of people want to go to graduate school. Again, you can think about it in terms of very traditional programs. You can obviously go to a master's program in computer science or engineering. You can go to ECE, electrical and computer engineering. You can go to programs in media studies, but you can also start looking at programs which are quite interdisciplinary because of this type of background. So these are just some snapshots of types of graduate school programs that we can apply to. And so all I can say is that the sky is really the limit when you think about how interdisciplinary this is and the types of opportunities it affords. Very important, many of us think about as soon as we finish this, let's work for some time. So again, you have so many different areas. So, I'm just mentioning some of these. It's really quite vast. What I also want to emphasize here is we are also preparing students for what I refer to as future-ready careers. In other words, we don't even know the types of some of the jobs that might be coming up by the time you graduate. But what we are supremely confident about is the types of skills that you'll be learning as part of this program will stand you in very good stead. Okay, so these are just some of the examples, and here is like a video. So imagine, you're talking about Microsoft, NASA, Accenture, Rolls-Royce. These are 4 vastly different organizations, and yet they're all looking at something which is related to very closely to computational media. So here we'll just play this. I think this is one of our last videos, and then we'll wrap up very soon. Now you get a sense of, wow, I could do this and I could be working on Microsoft. I could go to NASA. I could go to Rolls-Royce. So let's see how that looks.
Look around. Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen, where your digital world is blended with your real world? Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play.
At NASA, we're excited to apply mixed reality technologies to the challenges we're facing in space exploration. Through a collaboration with Microsoft, we're building applications to support engineers responsible for the design and assembly of spacecraft, astronauts working on the International Space Station, and scientists are now using our Mars tool on-site in mission operations.
On-site's a powerful tool for our scientists and engineers to explore Mars. But because we always felt it shouldn't remain only within NASA, we've taken the core of on-site and made an amazing experience that allows the public to explore the red planet. We call this new experience Destination Mars.
We live in an ever-changing world where unmanned and remote-controlled vessels are becoming reality. Let us share a view of this world with you. The control room is the nerve center of remote operations in the Rolls-Royce OX concept, where the global wall shows a real-time overview of worldwide shipping traffic. A full situation overview is presented to operators who are monitoring vessels via remote link from their onshore workstations.
Dynamic positioning reports DGPS-1. Lost connection for vessel RR9835. Suggested course of action. Diagnostics. Commands.
Proceed.
Okay. You're all very creative. So with the type of things that you learn here, this is also like a great time to be thinking about the startup ecosystem. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. Professor Raghu will touch upon some of those. As part of the curricular training that you get at Mahindra, we're also going to be learning about entrepreneurship opportunities, how to think about the startup system, and listening to a lot of leaders talk about this. So they're going to be these opportunities for you to be able to parlay what you learn as part of your curricular training in terms of entrepreneurship opportunities as well. So in other words, we're talking about you can go to graduate school, you can obviously be poised for some very successful, fruitful careers, and you can also start thinking about, if it's something that you have an idea and how you can turn that idea into something which can be executable into like a startup space. So in summary, what we're really talking about here is the storytelling component, how it is using consumer behavior and psychology principles and melding that with technology. There's blending the connection between the physical and the digital worlds. We're talking about how many of these traditional things that we talk about in terms of machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics, all those are coming together, and how some of these are being represented in terms of some very specific things in terms of tangible interaction or extended reality or digital fabrication. Okay, so hope this gives you like a very good snapshot. This is Professor Raghu, who's worked very closely with me on this. That is Professor Alex Sequeira, who's a professor of computer science, who's also like an expert in tangible user interfaces and extended reality, a close collaborator who's also very passionate about this program, and hopefully he'll be visiting us soon too. We do want to emphasize that we have like a world-class faculty already on our campus in Hyderabad, but we also have tie-ups with several top-class distinguished faculty from some of these different disciplines from around the world, who will also be part of this faculty here. So before we end, Raghu, is there anything that you would like to add or to emphasize some of the things we spoke about?
Yeah, yes, Professor Sriram. I just want to have a brief interaction with you all. Professor Sriram initially asked this question of point where in history we used to ask students how many of the students have cell phones, and within 5 years we moved to asking this question as how many of you do not have cell phones. Probably you're quite young, almost most of you would be around 17 or 16 years old. Probably appropriate question for you would be is how many of you have used a cell phone that has keyboard, or how many of you have used a cell phone that has got a keypad on it? You can show by raising your hands. So I guess I assume 5 out of 55 have used a cell phone that has got a keypad on it. So that shows a huge phenomenal shift that happened in your generation. Okay. So, but at the same time, remember that many of these touchscreen technologies that you see here, they do not exist. It's like they have been here in labs for more than 30 or 40 years. It's just that the market has matured to a point where everyone wants that factor. Okay, now next question I'll ask you is that what is your, you can unmute yourself and answer, or you can type it here. What's your most popular social media platform? No answers? Cool. Instagram. Anyone else? Okay. So cool. But anyways, yes, WhatsApp, yes, Snapchat and Instagram are most popular. Why do you like them more than say Facebook or WhatsApp and so on? So probably the reason is that Facebook and so on, it's not exactly technology per se. Yes, Reels is cool. So the reason for people moving towards Instagram, Snapchat, or probably 2 years back, the most popular was TikTok. The reason being was that in 20 years back, most of the web was based on purely text. And Instagram revolutionized that by moving from text to images like Pinterest and so on. And come 2019, when we had 4G was becoming prevalent across the globe, you had enough bandwidth to move from picture-based storytelling to video-based storytelling in the form of Dub Smash or TikTok and so on. So that means you have to see that how the current generation or future generations are going to expect more out of technology. right? They don't want text, they don't want static images, they want a more of an immersive experience. So now I'll ask you this last question. If you're watching cricket or football, where do you think, where would you like to be to get the best views? So now whether it's okay, home, stadium. So, well, if you ask me where, yes, in the stadium, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in the stadium? In the stands, or do you want to be in the middle of the ground? So, if you ask me, I would like to actually run along with the player to see what he's doing. If it's a football, just like I feel like the umpires are the one who gets the best views, right? If it's a tennis, I feel like the chair umpire is the one who gets the best views. But then there can only be 2 or 3 umpires, and there can only be one chair umpire in tennis, right? But future generations are going to expect this. So if you want the best views, they want to choose their own view, even if it means middle of the ground and running along with the players to get a feel for how they are playing the game. Okay, so that's exactly what immersive experience is going to provide for future generations. And last thing is that if you're buying something on e-commerce, or if you're booking rooms, or your parents are booking rooms and so on, what is the biggest thing that you hate? Like you want to buy a dress on e-commerce platform, or you want to buy clothing, or you want to buy some board game, or anything else, any item. So what is the biggest concern that you have? Okay, even more than quality, assume that. So probably the most thing that you can't do is that you can't actually touch and feel it what the product looks like, right? You can't be really sure about the dimensions of the product, whether it fits well into your home or not. So that is where immersive experience is going to play a big role. So if I'm booking a hotel, I want to be actually inside the room and see for myself what the ambience is going to look like. I'm not, these days, most people are not satisfied by just looking at pictures. So finally, I would like to tell you that probably by the time you graduate with B.Tech, say somewhere around 2025 and so on, almost all the websites and website technologies are going to be obsolete. The people are going to say that websites are for aged people. So the future generation is going to look or explore information through 3D immersive experience. Okay. So I believe that the technologies, including with the help of being aided by the fast penetration of 5G and so on. So 5G provides so much bandwidth, so that bandwidth has to be utilized to increase the end user experience. And for that to happen, we have to move away from the 2D world, such as today's 2D screens or 2D televisions. The future is going to be in 3-dimensional, exploring the 3rd dimension, adding that 3rd dimension to immersive experience that we get today through images or videos and so on. So that's what people who cover 8 semesters of computation and media are going to be able to do to the world, or rather to the tomorrow's world. So if you have any questions, you can ask us.
Audience, if you have any questions, please type in your questions in the Q&A window so that the panelists can view it and reply back.
I see one question here from Abhinandan. I think it's an excellent question, which is relevant to everybody, including us. So let me read that question for the benefit of all. The application areas that we saw for computational media, like shipping or aerospace or engineering design, would require a depth of domain knowledge as well. True. But we are talking about taking baby steps. That's also one of the reasons why we are not offering this in a silo. You're going to be having the huge advantage of the vast Mahindra University ecosystem, right? Not just the Mahindra University ecosystem, but really the whole Mahindra ecosystem as well. So they're going to be domain experts from different, as we grow as a university, you're going to have more and more of that. So we're going to have mechanical and aerospace engineering. We have like engineering design already. So we're going to be having some of that. We're going to be having the life sciences. We're going to be having other areas. We're going to be thinking about how can we create like a legal, let's say you want to study like the ethical issues of something which is like a legal argument. We're going to have like a law school. We're going to be talking about how do consumers shop for a certain product? What do they prefer? Do they prefer like an online grocery store? Or do they prefer to go and touch everything and stuff like that? We have the business school where we have experts in consumer behavior who are going to be providing those answers. So we're going to have a lot of domain experts The other thing is some of these are also available through what we refer to as asset stores. So some of these, let's say you needed to create, for example, like a ship or something like that, you don't need to actually build that ship. We actually have like very good digital replicas of some of those, which can also be used depending on the type of project that you embrace. So it's an excellent question. So depending on the type of interest that you profess, there'll be ample opportunity for you to be coming up with something which is relevant to that domain. Raghu, please feel free to.
Yeah, I would like to extend the thought there here. Abhinandan, please remember that in today's world, any product, if you see, it's not actually built by people of one specialization. It's a common, you're allowed to work with teams wherein the individual team members are drawn from different specializations. For example, if you look at website development 25 years back, I myself alone could do a basic HTML programming and get the whole website done. But today, to just deploy a website, I need to hire a good UX designer. I need to hire a visual designer. I need to hire a front-end developer. I need to get help from a person who is familiar with cloud computing and so on. So today's products, remember, they're not done by any one particular specialized person. It's usually drawn from people drawn from different specializations. So for people who do this computational media, you will definitely have domain expertise in other areas, largely because of the fact that Mahindra University is a very largely an interdisciplinary university, because you're allowed to take specialization, you take elective courses from different specializations. That is one. And second thing is that while your primary expertise is still going to be computational media, right? You will get domain expertise through courses that you take from other departments, but then your proficiency will be in creating immersive experience.
Raghu, I think there's another question from Revant. I think I'll let you answer that. I think you're in a better position to answer that.
Yeah. Yes, see here, Revant, in computer science, what we try to do is that, yes, we definitely cover some of these things, but then the technologies that we showed in the videos, they are not the core of computer science. So as you see that there is, if you see in B.Tech, there are two things, computer science and engineering, right? If you get a degree in CS, you get computer science and engineering. So there are two facets. One is science and the other is engineering. So in computer science, probably 75% or 80% effort goes in understanding the science and 20% goes into the engineering. But whereas if in computational media, it's about assimilation of these different things and trying to build an entrepreneur type of product. Okay.
Let me just pop in and say that this is a program which is front-ended by the School of Media, which is coming into existence from this academic session. And there will be support provided by the School of Engineering, specifically the Computer Science Engineering Department, which is CSE and AI, the programs which they run, okay? A number of you are saying that you're already enrolled, let's say, in B.Tech Computer Science. How can you get access to such courses? Yes. In years 3 and 4, I had actually typed it in, and Raghu has sort of skirted under this thing that you can take electives. And by the time you hit your 3rd year, the School of Media will be in its 3rd year with adequate faculty. So they'll be offering electives which can be taken by you all to sort of support your interest in these areas, you know, okay? We encourage interdisciplinary access for students across the board in the university, cutting across law, management, and media, which is starting off now. So I would not be hesitant of going forward, because we will provide access to all such courses which would be of interest and relevance to students.
Yeah, so everyone in 6th, 7th, and 8th semester, in all, you will be having around 6 elective courses. In those 6 elective courses, you'll be taking courses from different domains, in the sense that depending on whether you want to do a game development, or whether you want to work in aerospace industry, or you want to work on something else, what you'll be choosing is that you'll be choosing electives to enhance your domain expertise in that particular application areas. Yes, Sai, definitely gaming development is one possible end result, as Professor Sriram has been telling about various outputs that could come out of this computational media. No, you won't be doing, it's not a degree in doing both in CSE and Computational Media. As the course indicates, it's a Computational Media. As Director Sir, VC Sir was saying that this is going to be front-ended by School of Media and not by School of Engineering. But having said that, there is nothing that prohibits at Mahindra University for you to move and work with faculty from various other branches. Like could be a small project, could be a minor project, could be a major project. And if you got an entrepreneurship idea, you can always walk down to faculty from any department and discuss with them to get a more out of class perspective.
Professor, I think there are no further questions. I think we can wrap up this session.
Yeah.
With your closing notes.
Thank you, Sri, thank you, Raghu, and thank you, Rakesh. And students who are interested can reach out to admissions to proceed further. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.